Okay, let's just get right into it. Have you noticed that gaming feels, well, absurdly expensive lately? You're definitely not imagining things. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to untangle the baffling reality of today's consumer electronics market. Because, as it turns out, your expensive hobby is actually caught up in a massive, silent chain reaction.
To see just how absurd things have gotten, let's look at the PlayStation 5. This is a console that launched way back in 2020 for $399, but instead of getting cheaper as it ages, like technology almost always does, it actually shot up to $599. That is literally unheard of for aging tech. It's a massive red flag that something is profoundly wrong beneath the surface of the whole industry.
And look, this isn't just a Sony problem. Costs are inflating across the entire board. Xbox has hiked its prices 3 times. Nintendo is already signaling a major price jump for the upcoming Switch 2. Add in the fact that physical game discs are dying out, and thousands, literally thousands, of developers are losing their jobs in industry-wide layoffs. Honestly, it looks like pure chaos. But believe it or not, it all tracks back to one single, tiny component.
So what's the hidden culprit here? Well, it becomes startlingly clear when we compare memory requirements. A standard PS5 has about 16 gigabytes of RAM. Pretty normal, right? But then you look at a single NVIDIA Blackwell Ultra AI chip. That monster needs 288 gigabytes of memory. That's the equivalent of 18 PlayStations worth of RAM crammed into just one AI chip. And here's the kicker. Every single gigabyte that gets funneled into an AI data center is a gigabyte that absolutely cannot go into your home console.
And to wrap your head around the staggering scale of this, these AI companies aren't just buying one chip. They're buying massive racks of them, and then sprawling clusters of those racks. Take OpenAI's upcoming Stargate campus. It's reportedly being built to house the memory equivalent of 8.3 million PlayStation 5s in one location. Just to put that into perspective, that is almost enough PlayStations for every single household in Australia, completely swallowed up by a single tech campus. When you combine massive projects from Meta, Amazon, Google, and OpenAI, we've hit a tipping point. AI data centers are now devouring an estimated 70% of the entire world's memory output. 70%! That leaves literally every other industry on the planet, the folks making your smartphones, your laptops, your cars, and your gaming consoles, desperately fighting over a rapidly shrinking pool of leftovers.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. It's the logical question, right? If demand is through the roof, why not just build more factories and crank out more memory? Sounds simple enough. But unfortunately, the free market isn't exactly swooping in to save the everyday consumer here.
The real issue is that this isn't some highly competitive, bustling market. It's a massive bottleneck. The specific type of memory used for this RAM essentially comes down to a 3-company oligopoly: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. And let me tell you, they have absolutely zero incentive to drop tens of billions of dollars on new consumer factories that take 3 or 4 years to even build. Why would they? Right now, they're sitting back and raking in 70 to 80% profit margins from big tech companies who are absolutely terrified of losing the AI race and will pay pretty much whatever it takes. The memory makers are where the AI bubble might burst, so they're playing it safe and refusing to take risks on long-term consumer factories.
To really grasp the financial impact this bottleneck has on the market, consider this. In just a 3-month window at the end of last year, the price of a single 16-gigabyte stick of RAM skyrocketed by almost 300%. 300% in just a few months.
You can see how disastrous this is for the hardware makers directly from the top. The CEO of Xbox, Asha Sharma, laid it up perfectly, stating that the price they paid for console storage components had more than doubled since the previous fall. And worse, they expect it to surge to over 5 times what they paid just 2 years ago. 5 times! Things have gotten so twisted that, according to industry reports, the basic memory soldered onto some high-end graphics cards now actually costs more to produce than the highly engineered GPU chips sitting right next to it. And the fallout? Oh, it's already here, across the wider tech space. We recently heard a pretty bleak admission from an anonymous director of a Windows handheld company. They flat out said that Windows gaming handhelds and computers are effectively dead right now, and that no company will launch new products if memory prices keep climbing. I mean, think about how bad things have to be for an active business director to call their own sector dead in the water. All of this leads to some outrageous yet honestly incredibly realistic rumors that the upcoming PlayStation 6 could launch with a base price of $1,000. $1,000! If that actually happens, we're watching the home console drift away from being that affordable staple your parents could grab for the holidays and turn into an absolute luxury item. And the math is brutal. If a console costs $1,000, fewer people buy it.
If fewer people buy it, developers don't want to risk the money to make games for it, and suddenly the whole ecosystem just starts to collapse.
So how do these massive gaming companies plan to survive a shrinking install base? Well, they have to pull some very specific levers to claw that money back. And essentially, there are 4 main ways everyday gamers are going to pay the price for this.
Let's look at the first 2 levers, subscriptions and raw game prices. We're already seeing aggressive price hikes on things like Xbox Game Pass, while Nintendo is jacking up its online costs. At the exact same time, the retail cost of individual games is marching steadily upward. I mean, for 15 years, $60 was just the default. Then it crept up to $70 in 2020. Now, just a few short years later, $80 is becoming the new standard. We are pushing dangerously close to the era of the $100 video game.
Which brings us to lever number 3, total digital control. And this one is fascinating. Take a game that, frankly, underperformed, something like Immortals of Avium. If you go directly through Sony's closed digital storefront, the price is stubbornly locked right around £70. But if you look at the free, physical, secondhand market, you can easily snag a copy for £5. The difference is just staggering. And that massive price gap? That is exactly why Sony reportedly plans to axe physical game discs entirely by 2028. It's absolutely crucial for their bottom line. Ditching discs conveniently kills your ability to share games with friends, it wipes out the entire used game market on eBay. Basically, it forces you to pay full dictated prices directly to Sony within a completely closed, heavily controlled digital ecosystem. Then we have the fourth, and definitely the most painful lever, severe cost-cutting. Xbox recently slashed 3,200 jobs. They completely shut down 5 major studios. That included tossing out the incredible talent behind games like Hellblade, and reportedly cutting roughly half of the legendary ID Software team. You know, the actual people who practically invented the first-person shooter genre. But this isn't just about jobs lost, it fundamentally changes the games we actually get to play. Because those sky-high memory prices mean fewer people will own consoles in the future, publishers are completely terrified of taking any financial risks. Really cool, innovative games are getting killed right at the pitch stage. So what does that mean for us? It means we're going to see way fewer big-budget original titles and a whole lot more cheaply rebuilt 13-year-old games absolutely stuffed to the brim with monetization. Safe bets are completely replacing creativity. And you know, this kind of financial desperation opens the door to some pretty dirty tactics. Just look at EA. They're actively building platforms to serve real-time billboard advertisements natively inside the game worlds you've already paid full price for. Imagine getting completely immersed exploring feudal Japan, only to turn a corner and be staring at a glowing billboard for, like, car insurance. It completely ruins the vibe. But when a company has a financial incentive to serve you ads, it shifts game design toward permanent online connectivity and maximizing your exposure to those billboards, rather than, you know, actually maximizing your fun. So if this AI memory bubble doesn't pop, and these hardware prices don't come back down to earth, the traditional business model for consoles simply stops working. And that leaves us staring down the barrel of 3 likely, but honestly pretty grim endpoints for the everyday gamer. Let's break them down real quick.
The first future is cloud gaming. We're talking about streaming your games via services like NVIDIA GeForce Now. You essentially end up renting the hardware you can no longer afford to buy. But the massive catch here is control. Just recently, NVIDIA instituted a strict 100-hour-a-month playtime limit on its paid accounts. The reality is simple. When you don't own the hardware, you absolutely do not make the rules.
Future number 2, sticking to older, retro games. And honestly, this reality is already hitting the PC market super hard. Data shows that the vast majority of PC playtime right now is being spent on games that are over 6 years old. Plus, 60% of surveyed hardware enthusiasts are straight up refusing to upgrade their rigs for at least the next 2 years because the parts are just too wildly expensive.
And the third potential future is a massive shift toward mobile gaming dominance. But history has kind of already shown us how that goes. True premium console experiences like the Resident Evil 4 port commercially flop on phones. So developers simply won't make grand, hardware-pushing storytelling spectacles for mobile. Instead, they'll just prioritize what they know works: endlessly monetized, free-to-play apps that are basically slot machines disguised as games.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. As this massive AI chain reaction continues to quietly swallow up the world's memory supply, completely pricing out the everyday consumer, are we currently witnessing the final generation of the traditional, affordable home console? It is a fascinating and, frankly, defining shift to watch unfold. Thanks for joining me.